Maria had never been chosen before. Not at the orphanage, not in the foster homes, not in love. At 32, she felt as if life had passed her by like a train she was always too slow to catch. She carried her loneliness quietly, in her small rented room where the walls knew more of her prayers than any human soul did. Each night she whispered to God, or maybe just to herself, that she longed for someone to need her. Not for what she could do, but for who she was. She wasn't beautiful enough to turn heads or wealthy enough to make an impression. What she had was a heart that wanted to give, and the crushing fear that no one would ever want what she had to offer. When Maria answered the ad for a mail-order bride, in a small-town American newspaper, it was not out of romance but out of desperation. The world had given her no roots, and she thought perhaps she could plant herself in the life of someone who needed her, even if it meant crossing oceans. The man who had written her, a widower named James from Montana, sounded polite but distant. His words were more practical than affectionate. "I need someone to help raise my daughter," he had written plainly. "Someone steady, someone kind." Maria stared at the letter for days before answering. She was not steady, she thought. She was a woman patched together by disappointments. But she was kind, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The first weeks in Montana were colder than any winter she had known, and not only in weather. James treated her with respect but with a carefulness that felt like a wall. He worked long days on his ranch, and when he returned home, he spoke little. They shared dinners at the wooden table, but conversation was scarce. At night, Maria would sit by the small fire, feeling like a guest rather than a wife. She told herself she could bear it. After all, she hadn't come expecting love. She had come because someone, somewhere, had given her a chance. But it was the little girl, Lily, who made the silence heaviest. She was 7, with eyes too old for her years and a quiet way of moving, as though she feared her very footsteps might disturb the fragile air. Lily rarely looked at Maria, and when she did, it was with the kind of guardedness only a child who has known loss can carry. Her mother had died 2 years earlier, and though Maria tried to offer small kindnesses, a braid in her hair, a cookie left on her pillow, Lily accepted them without warmth, as though kindness was something that never stayed. One evening, after James had gone to bed, Maria lingered by the fire with her mending. She heard small footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw Lily standing there in her nightgown, clutching a ragged stuffed rabbit. Her lips trembled before she whispered, "Can you be my mommy?" Maria's breath caught. She had prepared herself for indifference, for rejection, even for loneliness, but not for this. Not for the raw, unguarded need of a child. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. She dropped her sewing and pulled Lily into her arms. The girl clung to her as if afraid she might disappear, and in that moment, Maria felt something inside her shift. For the first time in her life, she wasn't asking to be wanted, she was being asked. The days after that night were different. Lily began to follow Maria into the kitchen, curious about the bread she baked. She sat with her while Maria mended socks, asking questions about the world beyond Montana. Little by little, the wall between them crumbled. James noticed, though he said little. One evening, as Maria tucked Lily into bed, she overheard him whisper to his daughter, "Are you happy?" Lily's sleepy reply made Maria's heart stop, "Yes, Daddy. Because I have a mommy again." Still, not everything was simple. Maria often doubted herself. She wondered if James regretted bringing her here, if he saw her as nothing more than hired help. There were moments she caught him watching her, not with affection, but with something harder to name, fear, perhaps, or grief. She realized then that love was not something she could demand. It would have to grow, slowly, like the seasons on the ranch. The turning point came one harsh winter morning. A snowstorm had blown in overnight, and the ranch animals were restless. James, determined to save a newborn calf, collapsed in the barn from exhaustion and cold. Maria, panicked, dragged him inside with every ounce of strength she had. For hours she tended to him, wrapping him in blankets, feeding him broth, refusing to let him give in to the icy weariness in his eyes. Lily hovered nearby, wide-eyed with fear. "Don't leave us, Daddy," she pleaded, her small voice breaking. Maria held James's hand, whispering fiercely, "We need you. I need you." It was the first time she had admitted aloud that his life mattered to hers. When James finally recovered, the walls between them seemed less formidable. One night, as they stood together on the porch watching the sun set over the snow-draped fields, he spoke softly. "I didn't know if I could let anyone in again. But you saved more than my life, Maria. You saved this family." Her eyes stung with tears, but this time they were not from sorrow. For the first time, she felt the word family belonged to her. Years passed, and Maria's role in Lily's life deepened beyond anything she had imagined. She was there for scraped knees, for first days of school, for whispered secrets about crushes and dreams. And slowly, she and James learned to build something tender out of shared responsibility, something that looked a lot like love. Maria often thought back to that first whisper in the firelight, "Can you be my mommy?" It had been a question wrapped in hope and loss, but for Maria, it had been the answer to a lifetime of longing. Because sometimes, family isn't found in the places we expect. Sometimes it's born in the fragile courage of a little girl asking for a mother, and in the quiet strength of a woman who thought she had nothing left to give. Maria learned that being wanted wasn't about beauty, wealth, or perfection. It was about showing up, again and again, with love that asked for nothing in return. And in giving herself away, she discovered the miracle she had waited for all her life. She was chosen, not by chance, but by love. And so, the woman who once believed no one wanted her found her forever place in the heart of a child and the home of a man who, in time, learned to love her not for what she could do, but for who she was. Sparkle's message: no one is truly unwanted. Sometimes the love we seek finds us in the smallest voices, in the quietest requests, and in the courage to say yes when someone whispers, "Can you be my mommy?"